Hi, my name's Rio, co-founder of Topic, and in this short but hopefully helpful overview of our product, we'll walk you through how you can create better content faster. So let's get started. The first thing is talking about the overall idea behind why we built this tool. So one thing that you may or may not be aware of is that Google has actually done a lot of the hard work for you when it comes to understanding your audience and figuring out what you should write about. Because when anybody searches for a term in Google and pulls up the search results, what you're looking at is a curated list of articles that Google has tested and has seen resonate with the search audience. So what they're doing is they're constantly measuring engagement signals like bounce rate and time on site and testing out different articles and seeing what is really keeping people on this page and what's adding value for readers. And so what happens is that those best articles bubble up to the top, and what we can do as content marketers is analyze these results to get an understanding of the search audience, what they care about and what they want to read about. And what our product does is just make that easier and bakes that into your content production process so that every time you write a new post, you're doing the work that it takes in order to rank on search. So let's dive into what the impact of that can look like. So, people ask, does this work? Well, we've worked with a number of customers, one of them being FileStack, and the results have been pretty significant. This is a screenshot from Google Search Console from the work that we did with them. And what we did was we took their existing content library, which was relatively thin and needing of improvement, and we ran it through our system and our content grader to make sure that their content was more relevant to the search audience and included answers to all the questions that their audience wanted answered. And so when we optimized their library, we saw a threefold increase over the course of half a year in their organic search traffic. And they didn't make any other changes besides our tool, so we know that our tool had an impact, and it had a pretty significant and long-lasting one. The principle is relatively simple, but what our product does is just make it easier to put into practice. So what does that look like? This is a diagram of a typical content production workflow in 5 steps. So the first step is doing keyword research in a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush. And once you've got those keywords that you want to target, that's where Topic comes in. You give us the keyword, we analyze the top 30 results in Google, give you a research brief that you use to create an outline that you can then hand to a writer. And then after that, we have a content grader, which you can use to make sure that the writer covered everything that they needed to and optimize it before publishing. And if you're optimizing existing content, then you can use the grader for that purpose as well. So that's how our tool fits into the workflow. Now we'll walk through an example of creating a new piece of content with our tool. So here I've got our content brief dashboard with all of the different briefs I've created. Each brief is tied to a specific focus keyword. If you want to check whether you're using the right keyword, we do have a lightweight keyword research tool right here. So if I enter a keyword into here, it'll give us different broad match keywords, the search volume and trends, and we can also expand the search results to get a more granular understanding of the competitive landscape for this term. So this will show me exactly what results are showing up for this term and their domain and page authorities. So from here, we can either create the brief, or we can also create a brief using this button, either create new content or improve existing content. And if you go through this flow, then you're allowed to specify a location. So if you're creating geo-specific content, this can be useful if you want to target by state or even city. So you add the focus keyword, create the brief, and from here, what we can do is open up the brief. So it takes a couple minutes, so I've created this in advance. And the brief is broken up into 2 parts, the content research section and the content grader. And so each of these correspond to those 2 parts of the workflow that I mentioned earlier. So in the brief, we'll create the outline. And on the right side here is the outline builder where we will curate the information in the brief. So let's dive in. The first step is coming up with a competitive title and description, something that's really going to stand out, but also answer the search intent of the user. And so we show you the top results here so you can get an understanding of what are some of the key things people want to read about, as well as some of the related metrics like domain authority and content grade, which I'll get into later when we go into the grader. Some handy tips here are to look for these tags that we added to show you the most comprehensive, as well as content that is outperforming its domain authority. So this article on position 14 is a domain authority 38, but it's still outranking a number of other higher domain authority articles, which means that they're doing something right when it comes to the content. So that can be a handy tag to look out for. Another thing that we do to help in coming up with the title and description is we have a Get Content Ideas button here, which we can actually use to create title and description ideas for us to use. And so while this system is working, what it's doing is it's identifying the persona for this keyword, getting different content ideas, and then also finding different ways for that content to stand out, different differentiators. So these are different ideas, each in a box. You can click on, choose this idea to use that. And at the bottom here are a couple descriptors or differentiators that you can use to see if there are ways that you can stand out. So for example, if I was writing a guide on how to water a fiddle leaf fig, I could stand out by maybe also including a video or maybe making it step by step. So let's go ahead and choose one of these ideas. And once we've got the title and description in there, we can also tweak our word count. We give you a word count recommendation based on our analysis of this, of the top ranking results, but you can also use this slider to customize the word count depending on how you analyze this column, this word count column. So once we got the title and description and word count, the next step is diving into different headings. Another thing to mention too is that we're about to release the ability to also auto-generate outlines like we did the title and description. But at this point, what we can do is take a look at the other top ranking articles and how they've broken down this topic. So let's talk about headings. Headings are super important because people are spending 1 to 2 seconds on your site and scanning through your page before deciding whether or not to bounce out. And they're using the headings to figure out whether your article or blog post has the content that they're looking for. So choosing the right headings, making sure that you're covering everything that your audience cares about is absolutely essential for your content to rank on search. And so by taking a look at the other top performing articles headings, we can make sure that we're covering everything we need to. And how we help you do that is by showing them all to you here and also allowing you to click on any of the headings that you like to add them to the outline section here to the right. Another thing that we can do is summarize the article by clicking extract key takeaways. And what this will do is it'll summarize the text in between each heading and give you bullet point summaries of some of the key things that they're mentioning so that you can then also click on those to add to the outline. Over here, you can drag and drop the headings and bullet points to organize them. Also, you can use your arrow keys or these buttons up here to change their indentation level or reposition them. So in this way, you can build out the structure to your post, the skeleton that's going to keep people on your page. So after you've done the competitive analysis, the next step is to look into questions people are asking around this. We pull them in from a couple different sources, but you can scan through this in the same way that you were doing the headings and click to add the questions that you want to answer. So this is beneficial because not only do you have a chance for ranking when people are searching for these questions directly, but also these questions make your content more relevant. The last section is these topics to cover. And so we've listed out all the different key terminology and topics that are consistently mentioned in every other article and show you which ones are most relevant. We let you ignore them if you find any that are irrelevant. And also what we can do is we can group these by semantic similarity. And what this is doing is putting them into different colored clusters that represent topics that are frequently used together. And this makes it easier to see some of the patterns and makes it easier to also use these as the writer's writing out the draft. So for example, this cluster in pink looks like it's all related to moisture. So from here, what you can do is either click into them to see how they're being used or also add them all to the outline. And what this will do is it'll insert them at the bottom here, retaining the clusters. And then what you can do once you're satisfied with this whole thing is copy this to the clipboard and then in a separate document or whatever you're using to communicate with the writer, you can paste it in there and this can be the structure for them to work off of. And this can be really beneficial because your writers aren't necessarily experts in the topic that you're covering. And by making sure that you are giving them enough of a structure to work off of, it ensures that the draft that you get back is going to be high quality. So that is a good segue into the second part of our product, which is actually the content grader. So this is the content grader, and what you can do here is actually take an existing draft and then paste it into here to get feedback on any topics that might be missing. So once I paste that in, you can see on the right letter grade based off of the coverage of those topics to cover. So this grade is entirely based off of the coverage here, and in white you can see some of the terms that are missing from this draft. By clicking into this, I can get context into how other articles are using that term. So then I can naturally incorporate this into here and get feedback as I'm changing the document. A couple handy things to note here. One is that both the research section and the grader can be shared via shareable link. So this works just like in Google Docs, where you can just take this link and share it with your writer, and they get access to the ability to edit this document and grade this content without having to have their own topic login. And in addition, we also have a Google Docs and WordPress plugin, which you can use so that you don't have to copy and paste content so much. If you're used to working in those platforms, you can add them and get the grading experience directly within those platforms. So basically from here, you can either sign in and choose the brief, Or actually what we can do is also copy the shareable link and click load brief. And this will open up that brief without even having to log in. So now you can see that this Google Doc is being created in the Google Docs add-on. So those are just a couple different ways that you can use the grader to grade the content. So one thing that I do want to mention here is that it's pretty easy to game the system. Our grade is just based off the coverage of these terms. So if you just stuff these into your content willy-nilly, it's pretty easy to bump your grade up to an A. But that being said, that's not going to drive impact for you and your content. Because again, it's those engagement signals being sent to Google that really drive rankings. And those engagement signals are a factor of how much value your article is adding. So what you need to do is take these terms and use them as a starting point to improve your content and add new paragraphs and new sections that add value to your reader. And that's really how you're going to see the impact that we are able to see in so many of our customers' cases. So again, if you have any questions after watching this video, feel free to hit us up by clicking on this chat with us button up here. This goes straight to our Slack, and it's going to be either me or my co-founder Nick answering. We're online during business hours Pacific time, so 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you don't catch us when we're online, we will get back to you via email. Thanks for watching this video, and happy writing.